Welcome back to Mac's Garage. I wanted to make a video about oil and what you need in your vehicle and a little bit about it. And the reality is that it kind of should be broken down into a few different steps. So today I'm going to go over what type of oil you'll use if you have an older vehicle. So I'm standing here with this 77 Chevy pickup, and this really applies to anything that has a flat tappet type of camshaft, because that's where our oil needs really change in an engine. There are some other things that are a little bit different, but the flat tappet camshaft is kind of the big issue that you really don't want to run a modern engine oil in an older car. So what constitutes older? I would say anything kind of mid-90s or back has the potential for this. Companies started to go away from flat tappet to a roller camshaft kind of the mid-80s towards the later 80s. And by the mid-90s, flat tappet camshafts were pretty much obsolete in the automotive world. So what is a flat tappet camshaft and why does that matter? Well, here's a flat tappet camshaft and here is the tappet or lifter. Now, if you look at this lifter has a flat bottom, or reasonably flat, and then the push rod goes into the top side. Now, what that does is it basically slides along these lobes on the camshaft, and as it does that, it goes up on the lift and then kind of down to the base circle, and I'm obviously exaggerating that, but it lifts up and down, which opens and closes the valve. This spot between the lifter and this cam lobe is generally regarded as one of the highest friction, if not the highest friction points in an engine. And because this is such a high friction point, it needs some special additives to help it not grind together and wear out. Now, what happened in kind of the 80s to 90s range is they took this flat bottom and they put a roller and a bearing in it. So instead of sliding along, now it had a wheel with a bearing and it would ride much smoother, which reduced friction in this point. Because they no longer have that friction point, and really haven't for 30 plus years at this point, the engine oil has changed and evolved to handle modern engines, but left these old ones kind of behind. One of the most commonly referred to pressure additives is zinc. I'm not even going to try the rest of it, but there's more to it than just zinc. People just call it zinc, but it's zinc anyway. So that was one of the additives that was removed, and it was removed because it was damaging emission systems in cars. As the oil would burn and go out the exhaust, it would clog up the catalytic converter. So what you really need to do is you need to find an engine oil that still has extreme pressure additives for that flat tappet camshaft. Now, if you talk to a lot of people at the oil companies, a lot of their sales and tech guys, they'll tell you that modern engine oil is fine, and it really isn't. So this sheet is kind of my breakdown of when oil has changed formulations from a certification standpoint. So they can be a little bit different, but this is kind of where oil's heavily changed. Now, engines started to change somewhere around, let's say like 85 to 90 is when this really became a thing. So any oil that's going to be made and reformulated after about 1990 is going to start to take some of the pressure additives away, because new cars were no longer being built with a need for them. So if we look at this chart, SG is 88 to 93. That is kind of the last API standard that was really made for flat tappet camshafts. It was right around SG. Now, can you get oils today that still meet the SG certification? No, you can't. API no longer certifies oils as an SG. It is considered an obsolete rating, and no new oils carry an API donut with an SG certification. The oil that I put in this truck is this Valvoline VR1 10W30. Now, this has changed bottling a few times, and what they have now is high zinc for extreme anti-wear protection, and then for use in classic and modern muscle cars, race cars, and high performance passenger vehicles. Once upon a time, and I don't see it on the bottle anymore, but there was a section of time where they actually specifically said on their label that this oil meets SG certification levels, although it no longer carried a donut because it was obsolete. It told you that it met those standards. So that means it has your detergents, your dispersants, and everything that we need in an oil that's actually going to be driven on the road. But it's not on the bottle anymore. Well, look at this. Actually, I lied. I just didn't see it. Exceeds API SL in all preceding API gasoline categories. High zinc formula may not be suitable for certain emission system. So they now call it an SL with high zinc. So probably an SL with high zinc is actually an SG. But anyway, so this is what I'm using. This is what I'm using in pretty much all of my older vehicles. Is this the only oil that you can use and have a good experience with in an older vehicle? No, it is not. There are lots out there that are formulated for older gasoline engines and they work just fine. One of the major reasons I use this is because it's available. I can go to my local parts store and they always have at least 6 quarts of this sitting on the shelf. So I can do an oil change at any given time with this oil, and it's no drama to get more oil, or if I need some to top off, it's right there at the local parts store. What kind of prompted me to make these videos is actually a question about an oil that I've never seen in a store before. I think it's a good oil, but I've never seen it in the store, so I'm not going to buy it. This oil is easily available to me, and I know it's a good oil, so I'm going to use it. But again, is it the only good oil? No, I'm using it because I have access. So that would be my recommendation for you. Do a little bit of research, figure out what type of oil is going to work well for your older vehicle, and then figure out what's close and local to you so you can get it easily. Let's talk about diesel oil. All right, so while we're talking about this oil and the additives and things that happened, oil got really bad for older engines like this in 2004 when the SM category came out, or when the SM rating or category, whatever we want to call it, when that hit the shelves, people started having cam failures. So at that time, what people did is basically switched to diesel engine oils in their gas engines. Now, the additive package in a normal diesel oil doesn't always work super well for a gas environment. It works, but it's got some different additives that maybe aren't necessarily tailored to a gas engine because it's diesel oil. It's kind of tailored to them. Now, the current, as far as I know right now while I'm making this video, certification or rating for a diesel oil is the CK4. Which is actually relatively new. I didn't look up the year on this one, but it's relatively new. Now, if I go back to this API donut on the back, it also says that it meets SN, which is too new of an engine oil for you to have good lifter protection, which also means what happened to gas oil back in 2004 when people started wiping out cams in older engines is currently happening to diesel oil. They're removing a bunch of pressure additives from diesel oil that is going to end up with failures in like older diesel engines like that. So keep that in mind. The new diesel oil doesn't have the pressure additives like it used to either, which I kind of knew was happening, but the fact that this has an SN certification drives home that that is definitely the case. So if you made it this far, I'll kind of wrap it up. And I'm not telling you what oil to buy, but if you've got an older engine with a flat tappet cam, you need some pressure additives, generally zinc. There are different oils available and you can get them in several different weights. That's all your preference. You can figure that one out. Diesel oil, no longer a good option. It was for a long time. The new CK4 certification level for a diesel engine oil doesn't have the pressure additives like the older one did. I'm not sure where it landed, but if it's meeting SN, that means it's too low for these flat tappet engines. which means it's probably too low for those old diesel flat tappet engines as well. So we're going to see an issue with that. Other than that, change your oil often. Oil's cheap, engines are expensive. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't yet, and I'll see you later.